All right, guys, let's go talk about Kozma. Okay, well, hey, welcome everybody to Hot Takes Live. My name is Clyde, and I've got Skada Hurt with me in the studio today. We're going to talk about a ship voted on by you guys in the Clyde Plays Discord. This ship is called the Kozma Minin or Kozma Minin. Somebody told me it might have been Kuzma. I don't know, but this is a Tier 9 Soviet cruiser that was released, I don't know, several months ago, but it hasn't been widely available. And so we had a lot of interest and a lot of curiosity about the ship. Spoiler alert, I think this is an interesting boat. It's got a lot of cool capabilities. We're going to talk about those today as we go through the categories over here on the right. So what is a hot take? A hot take is basically just a discussion, or a hot take live, I should say, the discussion between myself and Skada. We're going to talk through things like guns, torpedoes, the sensors, how fun the ship is to play, whether or not we think it has a place in competitive modes, things like that. And I think Kozma Minin is going to be one of those boats that hasn't been widely available, but we're hopeful that we'll see it in Santa crates this year, or maybe in some other way, or maybe she's even easier to get than that. Skada, welcome to the show. Say hi to the people and give us a little rundown. What do you think of Kozma?
I think Kozma Minin came out like October of 24, and I think it came and went. And I'm surprised it's what the Clyde's Play Discord faithful wanted us to talk about. That's
I was surprised too, because it's not you can't buy this boat right now, and I thought, oh, okay. Well, I like the boat. I think I mean, spoiler alert again, as I said already, but.
All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Yeah. Take care.
Yeah.
It's
catch
good.
us on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. We're doing those shorts. See, the YouTube lets you do the short video.
It's going to be great when we do one of these that way, and it's just some boat that we both think is a garbage scow.
Just a real trash
like 30 seconds short.
Well, let's just dive right into it. So what we're going to do is, as with other hot takes, we're going to rate these things from 1 to 5. This is not a scientific rating. It is not mathematically provable. It's really mostly what these videos are is a format and a structure for us to have an interesting conversation, hopefully, about what is hopefully an interesting boat. So you might see us put down a 3 or a 4 on some category, again, rated 1 to 5. And you might go, well, that's a 2 or a 7 or whatever in my 1 to 5 scale. And that's just us having a friendly disagreement. That's okay. That's part of what having a conversation is. And the other thing I'll caution you against is when we get to the bottom and we total up all the points, this is going to have some sort of total score. And if you compare it against some other boat that we've hot taked already, and it's got a different total score, it does not mean that that ship is better or worse. There are so many factors like your personal preference and your skill in a given type of ship or class of ship that come in there. Really, again, the value here is that we've had a structural conversation or a structured conversation about the different parts of this ship, and hopefully that reveals some interesting things about it that you may or may not have known already. So with that, let's dive in and take a look at the main battery guns on the Kozma Minin. Skada, do you want to start with guns? I'll throw the opening salvo to you. No pun intended.
Okay, so Kozma Minin's main battery is 4 2-barrel turrets of 203 millimeter APHE combination shells, right? It's basically Prinz Eugen or Admiral Hipper turrets slapped on this cruiser. So you get very German characteristics of the shells on a Russian ship. Your HE alpha is lower. You're kind of more of an AP centric thing. You kind of plays more like you were playing a German cruiser in that regard. The range on the guns, I think the base range is like 18 and a half. It's pretty good.
18.5. Yeah, that is good.
Base reload is 9.5, which is not bad for 203s for a heavy cruiser at this tier. Sigma's 205, cruiser stats, right? Like relatively good flight time, on the shells. Pretty good turret traverse. They're very usable. I think overall, when you're talking about like these guns at tier across the board on tier 9 cruisers aren't going to light the world on fire, literally, because the HE fires per minute is not amazing on them. It's not bad, but it's not, it's not amazing. But I think they're very good and serviceable guns for the tier, being 203s as opposed to, a sub 200 millimeter shell. They feel very normal. Like, and I think in the game, as they've added more and more tier 8, tier 9, tier 10 cruisers that have 300 millimeter battleshipy size battle cruiser guns and those kind of things, 203s start to actually feel smaller. But for me, when I started playing World of Warships, 203 was like the normal, like, heavy cruiser-ish size gun. And so
Mhm.
having those on here feels pretty normal, feels pretty usable.
Yeah, I agree. I think the guns, and when we talk about them, right, we describe these as hipper guns, we describe them as Prinz Eugen guns, but these are leveled up to tier 9. This is a tier 9 cruiser, not a tier 10 cruiser, not a tier 8 cruiser. And so they did get that extra range. You talked about the main batteries at 18.5. A lot of times I think what I see out there, I see it on like DevStrike forums or even in my own Discord. People be like, well, it's got the same guns as Hipper. Well, it doesn't. Hipper's guns, 17.7 kilometers. This ship has an 18.5 kilometer range. The reload is a second better, right? There's a number of things they tweaked to make these tier 9 appropriate. So what I wouldn't want somebody to do is to look at this boat, recognize the shape of the turret, and assume performance, because they are different, right? You talked about, I think, some of the HE limitations or weaknesses, perhaps, is maybe a way to do it, because like German ships, it doesn't have a strong HE fire chance and things like that. I think the HE shells are still good. I think this still has the quarter pen. Did you already mention that?
No, I did not.
I think it does, and I'm going to double check that to make sure. Yes, it does. 51 millimeters of pen. So even though this is a Soviet ship, it has 1/4 pen, which means basically, for anybody who's unfamiliar with that term, that means taking the caliber or the size of the shell, in this case 203 millimeters, dividing that by 4 to get the amount of millimeters of armor your HE shells will penetrate. Most ships have a 1/6 pen. That's the standard calculation. In this case, it's a quarter pen, so you're getting a 51 millimeter penetration, which is excellent. That's going to let you pen a lot of things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. If we're taking a look at the AP performance of the ship in terms of the penetration numbers, I think those will be kind of interesting to look at. We can't really compare it in a direct way against like Viasma, right, which is a secret battleship that they're pretending is a cruiser, or Kronstadt has 305 millimeter guns. Yes, when you're choosing a tier 9 cruiser, you have to be like, I'm choosing from all of the tier 9 cruisers. So you might choose a Kronstadt or a Siegfried or a Brest or a, whatever. But in the case of looking at the guns that have, or the ships that have 203 millimeter guns or so, where do we find this thing? It's down there, 207 millimeters at a 12-kilometer range. So if we compare that against, for example, Buffalo, 235 millimeters at the same range. I don't know if we have much more that's a 203 that's higher than that on the score. So the AP pen is reasonable. And it's going to be, especially if you get a nice broadside, you'll be able to use that well. Standard ricochet angles, 45 to 60 degrees, just to throw the numbers out there. 14 millimeters of overmatch. Obviously, it follows the same formula as everything else with standard fuse times. So while I think it's good and reliable AP, it's not, like going to outpen like a Brest, which has 330 millimeter guns or whatever they are. I think the guns are decent. I think the reload is fast enough at 8.4 seconds. Do these shells, do they feel exceptional when you're using them, or do they feel pretty typical, I guess?
No,
No,
they
I
feel
don't think
pretty
they do
normal.
either. No, I think this is
Ultimately, I know
pretty typical.
you reference, oh, well, it's not exactly like an Eugen because it's a tier difference and they've been tiered up. Really, the only thing that's been pushed
Yeah.
up is range. They're basically identical to Rune, which
They
is
probably are
basically
similar to Rune, aren't they?
Rune is basically identical to Eugen. It's just that there's 9 guns on a Rune and only 8, and so math's different. But if you want to compare 9s to 9s, like
Mm.
Rune has slightly better AP and HE DPM because it has 9 guns at a different reload cycle like than this does, but it's very similar. And I think they feel very
Yeah,
much like you're
yeah.
using the Rune's guns.
Yeah, and a lot of people like to crap on the Rune, but they probably shouldn't. Like, Rune is a perfectly serviceable boat at its tier.
Yeah.
So again, the range on Runes is a little bit shorter. But other than that, like you said, I think you're spot on. The additional gun makes up for the 1 second worse reload that Rune has. and actually makes the DPM overall better. That's a great comparison. I'm glad you pulled that one up because I had meant to get there, but I forgot to.
I think, I mean, I think if you're in the client, you look at it in the client, I'm not going to dig
Mhm.
in now, but it's probably the same shell. Like, and I think it's the same shell on all of them. I think if you just look at the shells,
It
the AP
does.
and
They're
HE
the
shells
same
are
drag coefficient,
identical.
same speed, same weight. Yeah, they are. And
Yeah,
it's the same
and
shells, Hipper and Eugen as well.
in our Twitch chat here, Rommel asks, is it close to Blucher, which is a dockyard ship that came out this year that is also uses a similar looking gun, right? And no, Blucher's guns are different because of the dispersion that they gave those guns. They just feel and work totally different.
They've got an extra two. Blucher has 200 more damage. It's got a slightly higher impact speed and a slightly shorter flight time. Only 0.2 seconds better. Kozmas are 6.3 seconds for a 12-kilometer flight, 6.1 seconds on Blucher. Both of those numbers are good, actually. In fact, let me compare to the flight times here. The best flight time you have at the tier is Kronstadt, then Tianjin. But you're going to get down to the sixes real fast, right? So it's kind of mid-pack. Not a slow shell, not a fast shell. So those are acceptable numbers in terms of flight time, but similar. But I think Blucher's got some advantages, and then Blucher has improved ricochet angles as well.
Yeah.
So 55 to 65 degrees from start to guaranteed ricochet.
And crazy better dispersion, right?
Yeah, and the dispersion, which you already highlighted, but that
which is where it feels better. Like they're very
Yeah.
similar in shooting at range because they have similar base ranges, and Blucher has a much longer reload, so its DPM is worse. But if you're used to playing Blucher now and you got yourself a Kozma Minin and you went out there and you did some gunnery at like 16 km on both of them, you would feel bad about Kozma Minin because it's not putting shells on target the way that Blucher does.
What's the Sigma? Sigma is the same on both. And yeah, it's a 10 meters shorter horizontal dispersion and 5 meters better vertical. And that matters. Like that's not a huge difference, but it does. You will notice it a little bit for sure, especially at longer ranges. I think the gun, I want to throw the guns out there as a 3, unless you feel differently. Is that where you're putting them?
That's where I'm at on them.
Okay.
Tier 9's rough. There's a lot of really good cruiser guns at Tier 9, and there's worse cruiser guns at Tier 9, I would presume.
Oh, for sure.
The Grand Kozma Minin or Kozma Minin package to me is not the main battery. So I think it's an average main battery.
Pretty serviceable. And yeah, no, that was a great question, Rommel. I wasn't thinking about Blucher, so I'm glad you brought that up. Real quick, I forgot to do this at the beginning, but we got a couple of different camos for Kozma. They're both pretty boring. We got a gray and we got a light gray. That's what you get for camos for this boat. So if you're looking for a fancy multicolor camo, you're not going to find it here. Just as a heads up there. We'll jump over and we'll talk about the torpedo armament for this ship next. It does have torpedoes. And they are, I think it's just 2 launchers, 1 on each side, 5 packs, as you can see there in the pictures. These only go 6 kilometers. So these are not really strong competitor torpedoes. A lot of times when we see those German ships that got reflagged as another country, we see an improved torpedo or a longer range torpedo. They chose not to do this with Kozma. So as we're starting off, right, it's sounding like, well, geez, Kozma has pretty average guns. It's got these kind of short range German-esque torpedoes. Like, what does it have? Don't worry, we'll get there. I don't think these torpedoes are particularly impressive. They basically match what we have on other German cruisers of similar tier, right? So I'm looking at Hipper, Eugen, Rune, and Blucher. They all have the same damage. They all have the same range. Rune has lower DPM.
They do not have the same damage.
Oh no, shoot, you're right. I missed it. Sorry, it's 4,000 more.
Kozma Minin's torpedoes are a weird mix of the Hull and German, right? They have higher alpha damage than the German torpedoes that you're comparing them to. They have the 6 kilometer range. They have less range than Donskoy, which this is the hull of a Dmitry Donskoy, but the torpedoes hit a lot harder than the Russian ones as well. So the flood chance on these is substantially better than the German torpedoes in comparison. Even Blucher, where you have like an 8 kilometer torpedo. So these while it looks like you're putting, it's like a German cruiser kind of feel on a Russian ship, they're not quite Russian torpedoes because they're shorter range, although you should be used to cruisers from Russia having shorter range torpedoes because a lot of ones lower tier than this do.
Yeah.
But these torpedoes pack a wallop in comparison to some of the ones you're comparing them to. And Having had used them recently when I was refreshing my feelings about this boat, I personally think the torpedoes on this, while not, rangy as far as cruiser torpedoes go, I think are a little better than average.
It's interesting because I was looking at this. I was looking at the range, and I was looking at the damage on this little table I have over here on Ship Tool. And what I noticed was the DPM of Kozma Minin, Admiral Hipper, and Prince Eugen is all 145,000. There is a
Yeah,
difference though. It's 145,405 for Kozma, and it's 059 for Hipper and Eugen, and that's
yeah, and
because of the number of launchers and things.
and the DPM being is weird, right? Like so Eugen has 4x3,
Yep,
and this has 2x5, and they're both 6 kilometer, but that's where a lot of the stuff
similarities
changes.
kind of
So it's a
change.
different feel. This has Donskoy launchers with kind of a German torpedo in it, except they do a bunch more damage than like runes or even Blukers or whatever. So it's kind of a weird. It's just a different. They're
Yeah,
like, oh, It's one of those things where they're like, we got to tweak this because in the grand spreadsheet that divines balancing of all ships in this game,
all hail
this is clearly
spreadsheet.
a place where they they bumped that up so this would meet the budget that they had put out for building this ship.
Capability budget, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
No, that's good. I'm glad you pointed that out because I was totally going to gloss
Yeah.
over it. But yeah, they pack the same amount of DPM in 10 torpedoes across 2 launchers that the other ships do in 12 torpedoes across 4 launchers, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's probably what they were trying to do, right?
I
They
would
were
that's the
probably going, oh,
spreadsheet
let's do
talking.
that.
Yeah,
But weirdly, like it blows Rune's torpedo DPM away, and it's better than
it
Blucher,
is
which
odd.
came out later. So it's kind of a weird. It's like, well, we're trying to balance these torpedoes versus a couple of tier eights,
Mhm.
is how that feels.
Yeah.
And I think outside of some of the other things that are on this ship, a lot of this ship feels balanced against a tier 8, but then sold at tier 9.
Yeah, I mean, the guns have that kind of similar performance. Again, a little bit extra range, but similar damage, similar everything else. And then the torpedoes here keeping that range, a little more damage just to make the numbers match. So not very exciting design up to this point. You brought up the spreadsheet, and I think that you're spot on, right? They were just trying to make it fit into a performance curve, if you will, that they're familiar with,
Mhm.
and that's going to provide unpredictable testing results for them. Is that a bad thing? Not really, but it is kind of boring, right? Like it's fine, but it's not necessarily exciting. And so, at this point, people on YouTube are looking for another video to watch because we're talking about how this is like just kind of like regular stuff, but there's more to Kozma Minin than what we've talked about so far. For the torps, because they're so short range, like this is not a torpedo boat. It's not about it. Even though we talked about how there's bonus damage and things, I can't imagine that these torps are better than like a 2. Maybe they're a 1. I don't know. Is there a number that's kind of settling in with you that you're thinking of that kind of?
Oh, you think they're that low on the spectrum?
I don't
Wow.
think they're very usable because I don't want to play this boat that close to danger. Do you get a lot of use out of them? Now I want to know this.
It just depends on the mode and how you're playing it
That's
because of
true, I
its radar
suppose.
because it's a radar cruiser and because it's relatively tanky. I think you end up in places around islands so you can use your radar.
Hmm.
Um, so like I don't necessarily want to. I don't play this boat like kited away like Donskoy because the guns aren't that good. So I think the torpedoes are usable, but a different
That's
structure, different
interesting.
folks. I don't think it's like they're not like Takahashi or like Hector good, which is like some of the
No.
better torpedo boats at the tier. Um, but like I would rather use these than Donskoy's 8 kilometer torpedoes because I think they just hit a lot harder,
Yeah, that's true. And
right?
I suppose if you're
So
diving an island, right, because you were up there
yeah,
radaring for a sidekick and everything, and
yeah,
I mean,
it's eighth.
I
It's
can,
eighth in torpedo DPM amongst tier 9 cruisers, and then where I would knock it is the range of 6 kilometers, right? So
yeah,
for me, I would put them at like a 3, but I could understand why, based on playstyle, you would put them like at a 2 or a 1.
I can meet you at a I think a 1 is too harsh. I don't think that's reasonable. But like a 2 was kind of where I was kicking around, but I can meet you at a 3 because of the radar activity, maybe keeping you a little closer to the middle. So let's do that. I think that's actually interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up though, because like if you and I go, yeah, I guess the guns are a 3. Let's move on. Like that's not very interesting. And you and I do have different play styles, so there's often a good opportunity to kind of dig into some of that stuff, which is cool. Do you want to take us through some survivability discussion? Uh, throw it
Sure.
your way, maybe.
So gotta get the right tab up here. When you're talking about different things that would make this ship survivable, right? So health pool, base health pool on it is 43,400, which isn't amazing. It's pretty normal. What's the, base concealment? I have to look in the client for it
Concealment's
actually
not
to see what
good. I
mine's
think it's
like.
pretty
Is it like
high.
11-ish, 12-ish?
I have it to 12.6 in my build.
Yeah, let
And
me.
then I think base is like 15 point
Pardon
something.
me. I didn't have it. I was on looking at a different
No,
ship
you're
in
good. Yeah,
game
it's
from a different thing.
15.54 on before you modify it. And mine comes down to 12.6 kilometers.
Yeah, mine as well is at 12.6. And
Yeah.
that is also going to be based around some of the other consumables the ship has that we'll talk about, right? And why the concealment on that is the way it is. So when you're starting to build like a profile of survivability here, right? Okay, well, there's a lot of cruisers now that have way better concealment than that in the tier range and most likely at tier as well. Um, you know, just a lot of stuff that's going to have way better base conceal. So this is what 49th if with unmolested base conceal out of 52.
Right. Right.
It's some of the worst. So that sucks. The hit point pool I think is pretty average for a tier 9.
Yeah.
It kind of falls right in the middle. Um, uh, Survivability, there's no smoke, you don't have that kind of gimmick. So I think
She's got let's
yeah, it's got okay armor.
I was gonna say let's I've got a button for armor, which I didn't use on the destroyer because it's not very interesting. So I've got a couple of different views of the armor, and we can go to the client too. But if you're looking there at the bow, that's a 25 millimeter bow with a 35 millimeter armor belt in the bow, which can help to reflect or deflect, I guess, some of those shells. No real turtleback to speak of. If you take a look there, you can see the Citadel is all right, actually, hang on. There is an armor belt, and then there's Citadel. So you don't have an exposed Citadel, but you do have a 100 millimeter armor belt on the side of the ship there, with some side plating there. Torpedo protection at 27 millimeters. Behind the torpedo protection, underwater, of course, 45 millimeters of armor thickness on the torpedo bulkhead for the Citadel, and then 120 millimeters on the front. So the armor's okay. I think you still got to learn to angle with this one. You got to do some angling, and I'll show some of this in the client here as well.
Yeah, and I think it relatively is the Dmitry Donskoy haul, like just kind of one for one over.
Yeah.
And Dmitry Donskoy's play style is angled away,
kind of bow away at a
kind of doing that
40
thing, and it's very good at being tanky. Even though you can see in these images it's got a relatively large superstructure, it's pretty tanky. This hull's pretty tanky and pretty adequate for being at range and being able to bounce quite a bit of battleship spells. You got to remember you're a tier 9 now, so matchmaking wise you're going to be fighting a lot of 10s and 11s.
Right.
But still, like you have the ability in this to angle and to fight the ship pretty productively, even though the concealment's going to kind of let you down. And some of the other things, the hit point pool, again, it's fine. There's a heal. It's a tier 9 cruiser, so it's going to have a heal. Don't think the heal is anything exceptionally special.
No, I think it's
what is it?
300 hit points a second in my build. Yeah,
you get 3 of them. It's a basic heal. But yeah, so for me, I think survivability on it is probably around a 3. I don't know that I'd go higher. There's a lot of tier 9 cruisers that are more survivable that are like battle cruisers.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of tier 9 cruisers that are thinner skinned, like Sejong or things like that are less survivable because they have a lot lower hit points and a lot thinner armor, right? And so I think this is pretty average.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to push this up, if it were to be a tougher ship, you'd give it, it would need like smoke, like you mentioned, as a trick to help stay survivable. It'd need better concealment, or maybe a turtleback for the armor, something like that, that gives it just a little bit more tank. And then it has, I think as it is, it has a reasonable amount of armor, and it's got, that 27 millimeter armor on the side, 25 millimeter armor on the bow. It's enough for you to to angle well, as long as you're conscious of that and you are aware of the limitations of the ship, you can use what armor it has to your advantage. But it's not a free lunch, right? Like nobody's going to keep you. It's not going to keep you alive when you do something like I would do in a battle, something dumb.
Right. Yeah. Without, I mean, it's survivable, and without a heal gimmick, like without an armor thickness increase, which I don't think it needs.
No, I
You're
think it's
talking
fine.
about like giving it 10,000 more hit points or a heal gimmick, and it has
Right.
too many other tools for it to get those things. So I think
Right.
I think it has average survivability, maybe average to better depending on the player.
It's probably a 3 to a 3.5 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty reasonable. We're going to talk about the hydros of this thing next. So the acoustics, all I did really is I just grabbed a screenshot of the acoustics. Now this is modified by my build. And I kind of went back and forth on how to do that. Do I want to strip all my build off and pay doubloons to do that, which I didn't really want to do? Or do I want to show you my modified build? And I think some of you guys are going to modify your build like me. Some of you guys are not. And either way, we're going to have a talk about the numbers here might not be what you see on your screen. So I just left it modded for my build. I am running in slot 2. I am running, in fact, I'll show you the capture here. In slot 2, I'm running the hydro, or I'm sorry, the radar module, not the hydro module, although that is an option. So if you want to extend your hydros instead of your radar, you can. But for the hydro, if we come back, you're looking at these numbers here: 3.5 kilometer detection for torpedoes, a 5 kilometer detection for ships. And this is an extremely typical hydro. Among ships that have hydroacoustic search, this is very, very normal. And so I have a hard time saying that this is competitive with, your German ships, which have a 4 kilometer and a 6 kilometer detection range. And then the duration, the action time here is about 2 minutes, which is extremely average as well. What's special about Kozma is that it has hydro at all, right? We've been talking about, the guns and the torpedoes and the survivability. So far, pretty average scores, 3s across the board. And I think my recommendation for hydroacoustic search would also be a 3. But because you've got a hydro at all, that's going to give you a 3, in this case, 3 points. But it'll give you that capability to avoid incoming damage. It'll help you locate folks through islands, because, the hydros in World Warships are magic. And then it'll, of course, let you potentially... I guess I already talked about avoiding torpedoes, so never mind. It'll help you just kind of stay alive. Again, I think a hydro is primarily as a defensive tool, where you opt into offensive uses for them. But these are, to me, unexceptionable, but I'm grateful they're here because it is a powerful tool that this ship has. It's got any hydro thoughts to add, I guess, to the heap there?
It's a 3.
Yeah, I don't think it's a really exciting conversation, but I do.
There's really only like there's only like 3-ish kinds of hydros on tier 9 cruisers, and it's this is the one that most everybody has: the 3.5, 5, 3 charges without buffing, runs for 100 seconds, IJN, French, British, American, Russian. This is the same hydro off Donskoy. The only thing that has better hydros are the Germans, and then there's a couple of ships like Santander and Hector and Chicama that have worse. Those are like the only ships that have worse. And then there's the ships with none. So the ships with none don't even get a score. And then so this is a 3.
Yeah, it is so averaged. It is a 3. Helmet says it's a 2.5. Maybe it is, but 3 is a number there that works for us. And that's what you'll see with hydros, is there's a lot of commonality across ships and even across nations. And we're going to see some similar stuff there when we go to radar, which is our next category. Scott, I'm going to hit this button, which will bring up the radar there. Not a lot of numbers on the radar screen, but the one that I think people are going to be most excited about is that range.
Yeah, so again, Donskoy Hull, this has basically Russian radar. It's not Donskoy radar, which would, is 12 kilometers but has longer duration than this does. It's actually like the only thing that it matches up for one is the Kronstadt, which is a 25-second duration, 12 kilometer radar. So yeah, as far as tier 9 cruisers go, there's only shy of a dozen that have radar. The Russians have 12 kilometer. This isn't the shortest like Riga. It's not the longest like Donskoy. But it is 2 kilometers more and 5 seconds shorter than like Buffalo. It's if you look at the ranges, if you're basing it on the radar rating on range, this is the best range. It's not quite the best duration, but it's pretty close. So, for me, probably that puts it, like somewhere between a 3 and a 4. It really just depends. I think with that duration, it doesn't feel bad like Riga does, where you only kind of get one salvo before it goes
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not like Alaska or, like Seattle where it
Buffalo
runs
or yeah.
forever, but those are 10 and 9 kilometers. So you're making trades there, right? And it's kind of that economy of time running versus range.
Hmm.
Um, this is a very good mix of that. It's not the best of that, which would be Donskoy. I think if I had to rate these, I would say, yeah, Donskoy's radar is Donskoy's a 5 at tier 9?
It
Probably,
probably
because it's
would
30
be.
seconds
Yeah.
and 12 kilometers and you can buff it. And so as you see there, buffed, yours is running 33 seconds at 12 kilometers. I mean, that's an easy 4 for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a 4 too. So base numbers, and I think you said at least some of these, maybe not all of them, but 3 uses, which you mentioned, 25 seconds base. Mine's buffed to 33. 2 minute, 120-second, basically cool down. Mine's buffed down to 105 and a half. And then that ship or the ship detection range of 12 kilometers there. I think this slots in nicely at a 4, and the duration really is the trick. And so you hit that beautifully, talking about the various ones, because Riga's is just so short, and then the reload is long. This has a main battery reload, 9.5 seconds. So looking at your 33-second built radar duration, and again, that's if you can afford to go for the coal module, which I would recommend. If you don't do it, you could consider the hydro one maybe. But yeah, for 33 seconds, if your guns are loaded at the start, you'll get off like 2.5 salvos of 9.5-second reload. Now, you might be able to buff your reload a little bit, obviously, in fact, what is my
Yeah.
reload? It is buffed. It's 8.4. So you might get 3 full
Mhm.
salvos plus the one you had chambered already, and that's pretty
Yeah.
darn good.
And the key there on that duration and the range of it, you're getting, let's say, 3 salvos off, which is pretty good. I mean, that's pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
But because it
Allies,
runs
yeah.
25, 30 seconds, your friends are getting multiple shots off, and that's the big bonus, right? It's not like Riga where by the time they see what your radar is putting out there, they really only get one shot off if they're paying
Yeah.
attention. It's not as amazing as like Seattle's buffed radar that runs for 40 minutes. But
Runs
it's
into the
it's
next match. Like it
but
just
then
keeps
yeah,
going.
yeah, but there's penalties there, for then
Yeah.
the range of it. And so 12 kilometers though is just so good too.
And
And that's again why the concealment on the ship is 12.6, right? So
right.
you
Yeah.
you don't have stealth radar. I mean, the concealment's taking a penalty for the Russian radar range here.
Yeah, and you talked about kind of where you position, where you place the ship, how you use it. If you're looking to use the radar, you're going to be up close. If you're kiting, you're going to find the radar hard to use, right? So, um, and as we discussed, the guns are fine, but not exceptional. So if you can find yourself in a place where you can be a menace with both the guns and the radar and so on, then you're going to be in great place. This boat really does work well with others, and that is one of the reasons why the longer term radar from this over the Riga is helpful, because your guns are going to be enough to help bring ships down. You're probably not going to solo somebody in just a couple of salvos from full to dead, and so the radar becomes a good collaborative tool there with allied ships that are nearby. And you bring up the point of the 5-second dead time. You hit radar and nobody sees anything for 5 seconds. So people talk about the radar on like the pan-European destroyers. Oh, it's such a powerful tool. I'm like, I guess, but you share 6 seconds of radar with your friends or whatever the number is. Like, it's probably 7 or 8 seconds. But whereas you get maybe a couple of salvos, they're lucky to get one if their guns were already pointed correctly. And this boat can let you get a little bit more done there. But again, if you're out kiting, you're gonna struggle to use that, I think, to get the full effect. Anti-aircraft guns, not a ton of exciting thing. Again, AA is just kind of not super exciting to talk about. But if we grab all the tier 9 boats, we click on AA, we sort them by that AA strength number. We scroll down, and it's kind of right there in the middle of the pack. There's 51 tier 9 destroyers in the game. Kozma Minin ranks in, tied with several other ships at 20th. So Takahashi, there's 2 Takahashis. I wish I could get rid of the BAs, I guess. Is there a decorative switch I can switch off? No. But yeah, Kozma's right in there with Donskoy and Takahashi and Cambridge in terms of overall power. If we look at its a range, 5.8 kilometers is fine, but like ships like Takahashi have a 6.9 kilometer range, right? So it's not even the longest range, but it's a very reliable range. We got a lot of ships with about a 5.8 or 6 kilometer range. 126 DPS at the long range, 189 medium, and 146 short. So that kind of keeps a nice steady DPS across all of the ranges rather than having a lot at long range or a lot at short range, which some ships kind of they lean one direction or the other in terms of their AA. I have a hard time calling this anything but a 3, Skada. You got any AA words? I can't
No, I
imagine.
mean
There's not a ton to talk about.
it's identical to Donskoy, and
Yeah.
so if you haven't played Kozma Minin, but you've played the Dmitry Donskoy or you've played carrier against one, did you ever think, oh no, it's a
Right.
Donskoy?
Oh no, Donskoy.
It's a no-fly zone. I can't go near that Donskoy. So no, it's like a 3. Like,
Yeah.
and it's again, this is such a weird thing to rate, but if you look at all the tier 9 cruisers, I can tell you which ones are the ones and the 2s, and I can tell you basically there's only, Van Kuhorn is the only one that has strong AA, and I don't know if it feels as good as it rates on here.
Johan de Witt's pretty
You
good
know,
too, but yeah.
yeah, and
The
no one's played
Dutch.
Van Speak ever, so we will not Van Speak of it.
Oh
So
God.
I just it's just a 3. It's just a 3.
2
A lot of 3s.
stars.
This
2
ship's
stars.
got a lot of 3s.
Yeah, no, it does. But the thing is it's where the ship shines, and we're already seeing it kind of play out. Is it's got a rating in every category because they kind of put a little bit of everything
Yeah,
here.
it's in every bucket.
Let's talk ASW. I got a button for that over here. Here it is. So it's got aerial ASW. And let's see, I think that's under air strikes. No, depth charges. No, air strikes.
Yeah. If you're looking on ship tool, it's under airstrikes, not depth charges. Depth charges is over
it's
the
for the
side.
roll-offs. Yeah. So much of this is standardized. I don't really want to have a long conversation about this. It has air ASW. That's the one thing that you guys are going to care about. Hey, what kind of ASW does it have? Terrible or air? And it's got air ASW. So you'll be able to use that to drop on unsuspecting things. It deploys 2 bombs, which is pretty cool. And then, when you're thinking about how to handle submarines, this category is about how do I kill submarines, not just how are my depth charges. So you've got area SW, that's a help. You've got a reload south of 10 seconds for a cruiser, which is pretty good, right? That's helpful. You've got hydros to avoid and contend with those torpedoes that are going to come at you, which is helpful. This is probably like a 3-5 if I'm looking to slice this in the middle. It's slightly better because it's got hydros, because it's got radar, because it's got reasonable reload, and because it's got area SW. But it's kind of hard for me to call anything not a 3 just because that's kind of how this category is. But I don't know, Scott, would you make an argument for 4 or would you stick it at 3? Or
no, I mean like 40 odd tier 9 cruisers have this ASW package of
it's so common.
2 attacks, 30-second reload, 7-kilometer range, drops 2 bombs, they do 4,200 damage, blah blah blah. It's all the same stuff. They're just all the same. It's load leveled. If you look at Johan de Witt, these ships that they list that have crazy airstrike stats, they don't even have depth charges, right? This is like a different total category. So like everything that does this is just doing it this way. And then there are some tier 9s that have over the side depth charges. That's where your Johans and your Dutch come in, and there's some poor sons of bees that have over the side. But what I would bring that up on is that Dmitry Donskoy, the hull that this copies, has over the side depth charges. So if you are a tier 9 Russian cruiser fan and you go to get this ship because you like Donskoy and you want to try, well, what's Donskoy like with these German guns? This is an improvement, in my opinion, over Donskoy having over the side ASW. This has area ASW. But yeah, it's like a 3.
Yeah.
Like none of these are like 7-kilometer range is for the drops at tier 9. That's a bummer. Like that's because we'll get there, but this ship doesn't exactly it's not cutting a rug, so it's hard to dodge torpedoes with. It's not it's not it doesn't it's a bigger ship. So but yeah, it's just a 3. Just a 3. Maneuverability.
Yeah, I mean it's fine, and the trouble is they make it really hard to compare them. If I were to push it to a 4, it would be because of the sensors and everything. But what's really interesting is I'm looking at this. Every ship has the same damage, every single ship, except for Encounter. If you sort by damage, Encounter has 3,400 damage for its bombs instead of
Yeah.
4,200, and that's because Encounter has sub radar, right? It's got
Yeah, it
the
says sub-surveillance. That's the
sub-surveillance.
5. If you're doing it, I mean, the Commonwealth is the 5, and
Right.
then like you got to remember that like IJN and Italian cruisers and the Tech Line variants have
They have
sub-surveillance
those
added to
too.
them as well.
Yeah.
So you kind of might put them at the 4. They don't have as much pop as the Commonwealth one does because it's really special. That's a gimmick of the line.
Yeah.
So these other guys that, yeah, and I
Yeah.
and I could understand. Well, it's got hydros and it's got radar, so that gives it a better chance at finding a sub. And certainly
Right.
with the concealment of this thing, like if there's a surface sub within 12 and you can pick him up, yeah, that's cool with the radar. You can help with that. But you're if you pick him up 11 kilometers away from you with the radar, well, turn in and start rowing because your ARASW only goes 7, right? So
Yeah.
that I can't like it is a team thing. Is this ship is a great composition of like it does a lot of things for your team. Okay,
Yeah.
like that makes that better. But yeah, I think I can still just go. It's like a 3.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have sensors and you had all this same 7-kilometer airdrop junk and you're alone in a vacuum, you're a 2.
Yeah.
And if you have over the side depth charges in a tier 9 cruiser, you're a 1.
Yeah. Sorry, man. Sucks to be an over the side depth charge guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we jump, so let's lock in that 3 again. We'll jump to maneuverability, and I kind of want to get your vibes on this. I'm gonna hit a few numbers here. So it's got
Sure.
a pretty reasonable top speed for a cruiser of 37.8 in my build with signals and all that stuff on there. The turning circle is 970 meters, the second worst of any cruiser in the game, tied with Dmitry Donskoy and only worse than Vyazma, which you might remember is a battleship at its heart and will not be in the game long term. So it's basically the worst turning circle for a cruiser at tier 9. The rudder shift time's 10.6 seconds in my build. And did I mod that? Let's take a look. I did not. So there's some work you could do there if you wanted. At least I didn't put the upgrade on there. What do we think about the way this boat gets around? Is she fast enough? Does she turn well enough? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Base speed is tied for second
She's pretty
tier
quick.
at cruisers. She's
Yeah.
fast. 36 knots base speed is fast for a tier 9 cruiser. The only thing faster is Brindisi by 0.7, right? So
Which is
kind
like
of
nothing,
unnoticeable.
basically.
It's Kozma Minin, Donskoy, Almirante, Aquindo, Andalusia. These are all 36 knot base speeds. So she's fast in a straight line.
Yep.
Her acceleration is exceedingly average to poor because she's not Hector and Neptune. Okay.
Mhm.
And she's not like Vyazma, which like screws up everything because it's a battleship, right? Her rudder shift is not epic and it's not bad. It's pretty average, pretty middle
Yeah.
of the pack, maybe a
Yeah.
little high to middle. Turning radius is kind of high to middle, isn't it? Or is it pretty low? No,
the worst.
it's terrible.
It's the
terrible.
absolute worst at the tier.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But it's also like
like
it's super fast, so it's kind of a
but in a
contradiction.
straight line, she's really fast, and then
Yes.
you get a speed boost. Okay,
Oh,
and
did
that's
we
a cool
mention
thing
the
on this
speed
ship.
boost?
Yeah, that's a
We should
weird,
have.
cool thing that this ship has. Is it has an engine boost, and
8%.
there's only shy of a dozen tier 9 cruisers with an engine boost, and most of them are French. Couple are German.
Yeah.
Maybe Italian. But Kozma Minin has an 8% speed boost that runs for 2 minutes that you can build into. And that part of it with 12-kilometer radar is actually almost toxic.
I love the speed boost on this boat. Can we talk about the speed boost? I know we're already doing it. It's so
go for it.
No, it's just good. It's a thing where you look at the maneuverability, you go 37 knots, and as a destroyer man, I go, that's not very fast. And then I go, wait, it's a cruiser that is fast, right? And then you think about, oh boy, this thing can't turn for crap. This sucks. But dude, the speed boost, it makes this ship really effective, and actually makes it effective in ways that we should talk about in the fun category. But like, if you're on a flank and you finish your fight and you won and you still have hit points left, you can use this speed boost to go get into another fight. That's a maneuverability
Mhm.
thing. It's letting you kind of redeploy, put yourself in a place where you can keep playing World of Warships. And that it's almost like you get to play like an extra battle within the battle you're already in. Of course, you got to, again, predicated on the idea that you won your first fight. That speed boost is really special, man. It's super special. And I'm so glad that it's here. And it does make Kozma a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Now,
where
you
I
said
think
it
of
was
it,
toxic. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
where I think it can be toxic, and what makes it kind of special
Yeah.
is that if you're in straight line speed approaching a cap, and then your bad concealment gets you picked up,
Mhm.
there's a destroyer about in that cap, or he's entering that cap and he starts capping.
This is great, by the
And
way. Yes.
you have the opportunity to not have to hide that you want to persecute that destroyer in that cap. You are going fast, and then you hit that speed boost, and then you blow that long lasting 30-second 12-kilometer radar. So now you've lit the cap, you're seeing this DD, right? So now the DD's got to get out of there, and you're charging at him like a banshee, right? Now you may die for this because he may have a teammate that's like going to
Yeah.
shoot you,
Yeah.
but like he's not, more than likely that DD is not escaping your speed and your radar in combination. He can't get out of that 12-kilometer radar at the speed that you're bringing it to him,
Hmm.
right? It's
Yeah.
hard to escape that radar until the radar's over, right? Now, when the radar's over, you're this big, hard, easy to see cruiser that's now sitting there in the middle of this cap
Turn on your
going, "Hey,
hydros.
everybody, I hope we killed that destroyer,"
Yeah.
right?
Turn on your
But
hydros.
that part of it, I think in smaller, and we'll get there when we talk about competitive, but if you're not in a random, if you're in a smaller
Yeah.
match, a competitive size match where you're playing against less people, I think this can be really powerful with that speed boost.
Mhm.
I think that in combination with the 12-kilometer longer lasting radar can almost be toxic if you're a destroyer player thinking, Jesus, like I'm trying to cap here. When's this radar going to end? Oh my gosh, this guy is all over me. Like how fast he's going? 43? Like what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that part of it's kind of nutty to me, I think, in combination. And yeah, the boat's fast and you can use it to change in randoms. You can change your positioning and you can move across the map easier. Speed in that regard is just great, right? You always talk about how you want to go
I
fast,
love
have
that.
faster boats.
Yep.
And this is one of the faster boats. Sure, it doesn't accelerate quickly and it handles like a brick. It's not you're not going to use that speed
She's
to
not
do.
nimble. Yeah.
It's not great for speed juking. It's not great for um,
Right.
it's not great for rudder juking really because of the way it handles. But it's got straight line speed, and that's kind of cool about it.
Yeah. You want to you want to go to a place with intention, fight there and win, and then go to another place with intention. It does that really well.
Yeah.
Your description of how to pursue and run down a destroyer is great. That works in that scenario that you described, which is fairly specific, but it also works late game when you're just trying to mop up dead guys or people who are about to be dead.
Mhm.
And you can just kind of run them down and get places, use your radar, get stuff done. You do have to get stuff done in my build 33-second window. You got to get it done quick, but you
Yeah.
can. And you got great HE pen. We talked about the quarter pen. There's no part of a destroyer that you're not going to be able to pen, probably even with some of the heavier destroyers, things with 50-millimeter armor plates, 51 millimeters of HE penetration we talked about earlier, right? So for chasing
Yeah.
down those DDs, it's going to be really capable. I think the
Yeah.
maneuverability here probably lands in a 4 category. Does it land in a 5, or does the
No.
turning circle
And
and stuff destroy that?
in
Yeah,
fact,
that's what
I'm
I
not
think
sure
too.
I put it in a 4.
You don't think so?
It's fast in a straight line and it
And
has
it
that
has a speed
speed
boost, and
boost.
after that, you're out of
And
good
then everything
ideas.
else kind of falls off the table for it, right? So
Yeah.
I think for me it's like a 3.5. And I know
Mm.
you don't do the halves, but like
Yeah.
I don't think I could solidly put it in a 4 because there's limited things I can do with what it can do. I
It's
really
true. It
like
does
what it can
split the
do.
line.
But it isn't, it isn't when I think maneuverability in cruisers, I think like, oh, I can speed juke, I can dip dodge and dive, I can get out of the way of shells.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it gives me that ability.
No, it doesn't give you that. And it's kind of funny, I guess, because that is one big aspect of maneuverability. That's kind of like that, even though we have another category for it, but it's kind of like feeding into the survivability portion. Um,
Yeah.
and then the other part, of course, is just the getting around, which is maybe a little less glamorous. But yeah, yeah. I don't know, chat. What do we do? I'm genuinely curious. 4 or 3. See if chat catalyzes our answer here. or if they're not even paying attention. Close these other windows here. I think I'm going to call it a 4, man. What's chat saying? Dario says it's a 3. Helmet says it's a 3. Is higher better or worse? Higher is better. Legit, bro. X. Chat's telling me 3, but I'm going to put it in as a 4. It wouldn't be a hot take live or it wouldn't be a hot take from Clyde if I didn't get something wrong, right? I'm going to sneak that one in there just to be a jerk. All right. Ease of play. Is it easy to play? Thanks, chat, for telling me I was wrong. That's what I needed to hear. I think Kozma is relatively easy to play. I don't think it's a complicated ship. I think it has a lot of tools in the toolbox. And I want to show you guys in here real quick what they are just in a group, right? We talked about a lot of this stuff independently. We've got hydros, we've got radar, we've got a hull repair for survivability, and we've got a speed boost. And you've got those torpedoes, again, short range, good punch and damage. And then you've got your main battery, which is pretty normal. But when you look at all this stuff in aggregate, you realize this ship has a lot of tools. There's not something here you have to like decode to figure out how to use this stuff. You guys all already know. If you've played World Warships for any amount of time, you know how to use hydros, you know how to use radar, you know how to use hull repair, you know how to use your speed boost and when is the right time. You might not always use them perfectly, but it's not like you need to like figure out that if I use my radar while I'm doing this speed boost, like that's not a thing per se. One of the things I think that is kind of interesting about it is you might be tempted, and Skada, you brought this up a couple of times already, you might be tempted to want to use it like you use a Donskoy, bow away from the enemy with an angle to optimize your armor performance. When in reality, there may be times you want to get closer to an island and use that radar, be a little bit more of an aggressive pushing ship, probably in support of other ships that are with you. No ship is really an island all by itself. So in terms of how to use the ship, I think it's pretty straightforward, and I think it does bring in those tools. There may be combinations of those tools that get a little more intriguing, but I think anybody can sit down and go, okay, how do I use a Kozma? Okay, I kind of know what to do. So I think she's fairly easy to do well in. What are your thoughts, I guess? Did you find cases where you were like trying to figure out better ways to employ the thing or anything that made it kind of complicated to put into practice and use well?
I think the first time I played it, I had a really unfun time, and I was like, "This is dumb. What's the deal with this boat?"
Mm-hmm.
And then I played it more and figured it out, what worked and what didn't in it. And then I was like, "Oh, actually, it's pretty good in that regard." So, like as far as ease to play, Tier 9 cruisers are easier to play than Tier 8 cruisers because they have heals.
Yeah.
This has good armor for the most part. So, like that part of it, I mean, if you're broadside, you're probably going to get punished, but you know, you can, if you know what you're doing in regards to angling and core tenets of gameplay. Yeah. You know, so I think for the most part, it's, for me, it's kind of a yes or no. Is this easy to play? I think it's relatively easy to play.
Yeah. And I think it's
I think the things that make it harder to play is the concealment.
Yeah. And I think there's that as well as the gun performance, right? Because, you know, you said, hey, the first time I played it, I was like, what's the deal with this boat? It's kind of, you know, being weird. I had that same experience with it.
Yeah.
And I remember when it was announced before anybody had even touched it and played it, everyone said, Hipper guns on a tier 9? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, right? Why would I want tier 8 performance at tier 9, you dorks? Blah, blah, blah. And then as the ship, you know, came out of testing and I got my hands on it, I was still like, well, I guess I play it like Donskoy or I play it like Hipper or whatever. And it's not immediately evident that this is, and it should be, because if you go into the equipment, you can see all the tools, but it's kind of that jack of all trades ship. It's a very strong support ship. So that's one thing too. If you're playing this on your own, you might have a little less fun than somebody who's playing it with a squad, but I don't think it's about you can't play on your own. I think you can, and so that makes her.
But
pretty
it's not
adaptable.
like it's not like this huge like Citadel monster. It's not a huge HE spammer. It's torpedoes only go 6 kilometers. Like if you,
it's not Los
yeah,
Andes, right? It's
yeah.
not
Again, like
stupid
the
easy to
tale
play.
of this ship is that it is basically a 3, but it's a 3 at everything, and very little in the game is of everything, right?
I agree. Yeah. And I think this is probably a 3 for ease as well. I think
Yeah.
once you kind of learn, because what you don't have any overwhelming powerful capability. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what makes a ship easy to play. I could just
Hmm.
hit W and charge in, and it doesn't matter what I
Hmm.
do, and it's overwhelming and powerful. Um, or like I'm a Jaeger, and all I do is stay 6 kilometers away and launch torpedoes until I go blue in
Hmm.
the face, right? Like,
Yeah.
so those kinds of ships I think of as easy ships. This ship is not like
Yeah.
printing damage for you,
It
but
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't win DPM fights because if you're bow in, you only have 4 guns, right? And the,
right,
it
exactly.
doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, it's a secondary thing. It's not this, it's not that. It goes fast in a straight line, but if you find yourself overcommitted in it and you have to like turn and get away, it takes forever to turn and you get killed for that.
Mhm.
It has bad concealment, frankly, and so like that's hard too. Like, so I can't, it's just very. But then it has all these tools that help it be fun to play.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and
so
we're
yeah,
kind of
I just think it's a 3.
yeah. So and there we're kind of trickling into the fun section, right? I think this boat's probably slightly more fun than average because it can do a little bit of everything. I think it's probably
Mhm.
like jumping into that 4 category for fun, just because it's like, well, wherever I am, I can play World of Warships, right? I can
Yep.
put my hydros on and be safe against that destroyer. I can put my radar on and kill that destroyer.
Mhm.
I can use my main battery to hit something 18 and a half kilometers away. I can burn. I can get HE penetrations with 51 millimeters of pen. I can do everything except for torpedo something at range. But there are times where I can dive around an island and torpedo something up close, right? So I, I find this to be a pretty fun boat to play. I think it's a really worthwhile boat. And it's sort of
Mhm.
sad that a lot of people don't have it, but I'm hope not maybe sad is a dumb word, but like it'd be cool if more people could experience the fun that this boat brings to the table. Because I think,
Mhm.
especially when a higher tier Soviet premium comes out and Wargaming goes, we're going to sell it for $100 and that's it, or $140 and that's it. And then we go, especially on the North American server, people go, I don't know if I need another Soviet cruiser. And then we don't
Mhm.
have it out there. We don't see them out there. I think this is a fun boat and it's worth playing.
Yeah,
It's kind of too
I
bad.
would say I would take it to a place too. Like it does a thing in randoms that makes it feel like kind of a mid-tier fun, right? It's
Mm.
fine. But I've used this boat a bunch in other modes they've given us where it has been great.
Oh, sure.
This boat is awesome in Unbreakable Line.
Yes, it is. I've played it in Unbreakable
Because
Line.
it comes screaming off the border. It's super fast. You have a speed boost, and the torpedo alpha is strong. You just charge in with this thing and dump torps into people. It's great, and the AP is good, and the armor's good enough to get in and pull that off.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun in asymmetric battles because of the tools it has, and it's tough enough that it can hold up in asymmetric battles. And you can do things with it in there where it's fun in there. Just this week, with the personal challenges as part of the early access for U.S. destroyers, I needed 300 base XP in a Soviet cruiser, and I used this in a co-op and smashed and tore up a flank and killed like 3 people before anybody else on that flank could do anything, and felt like a jerk doing it, and was like, "Well, I got mine."
Mhm.
Uh, so so this boat does
Oh
a bunch
man.
of stuff in those modes.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty average fun in a random where you're so dependent on all of its tools
Yeah.
helping teammates that you don't
That aren't
know.
coordinated with
um,
you. Yeah. Yeah.
but like all the other junk it does in some of the other modes they've given us, it's pretty good at. And so yeah, I think it's a lot of fun for what it is. But again, you're not getting like, it's not printing citadels, and it's not.
No, no.
Yeah.
No, it's yeah. And I think it is good at all those things. One area where it might really sing too is ops. Um, and just because you can kind of be your lone operator in there and use that radar to yoink, not to yoink kills, but just do things in ops where ships are showing up and things. And like if you're a real ops main, I think you could have some fun here. Gaelic Knight in the chat says, I played this in ops. I thought it felt like Donskoy. I think it does in a lot of ways. You'll reload about 2.5 seconds faster than Donskoy. And it'll have some of the same tools. It'll have a lot of similarities there. The speed boost is a thing that it brings to the table that's fresh. You mentioned the Unbreakable Line. That's the respawn mode, where you get that the game provides you with a natural speed boost when you're zipping in off the edge of the map,
Hmm.
which is awesome. Well, if you hit the speed boost at the same time, you'll do unreasonable amounts of damage, which is pretty or
Yeah.
speed. I mean, excuse me. So no, I think it's pretty fun. What if you were throwing a number at it, what would you say? across all
I
the
mean,
modes and everything.
I think it's like between a 3 and a 4. I think its inability in randoms to do a lot of stuff
Solo
alone
work.
super well
Yeah.
makes it feel less fun than other things at tier. But in other modes, I've had a lot of fun with it, and it's a go-to kind of thing. So for me, it's kind of like in between, like a 3 and a 4.
Yeah. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. I think I'll throw it down as a 4 because when it really sings, it sings. But I agree with you. It's probably a 3, 5-ish. You know, again, we don't do decimals, but we'll do that. And then competitive, I think this thing would be really great in ranked for sure. I think if you see a tier 9 clan battle season, I think people will play it. I can't speak about tournament play where people are turbo optimized. Again, that's just not my area of expertise. We've talked about that in other videos.
Mhm.
But I do think this boat has a home in competitive, especially when
Yeah.
supported by a smoke destroyer or something. I think you could do some good work with this thing.
Yeah, I don't know if there's been a lot of competitive seasons that supported tier 9 since the
Mm,
release of this last
maybe
October.
ranked. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe ranked, but I would think radar cruisers and Russian radar cruisers are evergreen in things like clan battles. Um, I don't know if I don't know in a nines season if people are going to be like, do I want this or Donskoy or Kronstadt or Riga? I would probably I think this would be very high on my personal selection list if we were playing like in our little clan. If
Mm,
you're like, hey Scott, I need you to take
tier
a
9
tier 9
radar
radar
cruiser.
cruiser for whatever this season of competitive or whatever, I would probably consider this boat because of the range and duration of the radar. Um, and I think the guns are good enough. I don't think overall DPS wise, I think Donskoy brings more to the table. But I think and Riga has better AP pen and all of its stuff. But I think this boat again is very jack of all trades, and I think it would be fine for use in competitive. Probably better than fine. I mean, um, so yeah, I think it fits there. But
Yeah.
again, I don't know. I don't play ranked. I don't know if in tier 9 ranked if there's been people who own this that have been tearing it up there.
Mm. To talk a little bit about the DPM versus Donskoy, right? So the HE DPM on Donskoy is better, 144,000 versus 126,000 and change for Kozma. And then for the AP, Kozma beats out Donskoy there. So 298 versus 253. Now we know that a lot of time AP DPM is fool's gold, which you really, not maybe not fool's gold, but you need to understand what your actual realized DPM is versus just the number on the page. For example, ships like Nuremberg, right, to go way down to tier 6, really high AP DPM, but you can't always use it because of the angle of your targets and things like that. So yeah, I think you'd probably have reasonable gun performance compared with Donskoy. I think you could
Yeah.
totally use it there, and I think the number of tools and tricks that it has available could make it interesting. Certainly would make it interesting in a ranked situation where maybe you want to have enough tools and tricks to be kind of an independent operator while you're also supporting your team to get that win. And
Mhm.
also that smaller player count in there is going to make it feel a little less vulnerable than you might in a random battle. But no, I think it'd be at least on the list. I don't know if you'd see a lot of people taking it. It's a really good question. If you know, if we have people who participate in high level clan battles, Hurricane and Typhoon League, watching this either on Twitch or later on YouTube, certainly let us know either in the chat or in the
Yeah.
comments what you guys think. I'm always curious what what the game making is at those upper tiers.
I just think, it's not going to hold a corner like a Riga because it's not as tanky, right?
No, it would not.
And it's not going to do the Nevsky squat maneuver as well as Donskoy
Yeah,
would.
yeah,
And because the guns are a little bigger, its smoke fire penalty is worse than Donskoy, so it's not going to do like that, like smoked in kind of shenanigans. Although I don't know how much you do that with a Donskoy anyway. But I don't know. I do think it has a place there just again because it's a Russian radar cruiser.
yeah. I do think another ship we talked about earlier today, Blucher, could also be kind of interesting there. It doesn't bring any radar, but it's got some accuracy, which people might like. Maybe in that Nevsky squat position where it's kind of angled away, but its DPM is lower too, so maybe it's not the ship of choice. I
Yeah,
think
but when you're talking about like the AP stuff, like Blucher's AP pen is just so much better than those than
that's true.
this.
It
Like,
punches up.
and that's the
Yeah,
odd, when you're talking about AP, like Donskoy's AP pen is better than this as well, even though it has 180s, and that's Russian AP shenanigans due to speed of the shells and stuff.
Yeah. So I think I'll throw a 3 at it for competitive. I think it's likely to appear at least sometimes. But again, I don't know if this is like, oh, everybody, mortgage your
I
house
don't
and we'll
think
get a
anybody
Kozma.
would buy this to,
No.
because I think in most of the time in competitive, the best ships are tech line ships anyway. So
Yeah. Let's see. Let's do a little math here. 3, 6, 9, 12, 16, 19, 22, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Oh my gosh. 33 plus 3, 36. Did I add that up right? That feels like a very high score.
it is the best ship ever that you've reviewed in Hot Takes.
Is it really?
Yeah.
No.
It is.
Is it?
Total score?
Whoa, it beat Lucian, which was
Lucian's
a
a
35.
35, right?
And I'm a big Lucian fanboy, so that was
Right.
half
And that's
emotional.
and and then your insanely inaccurate Congress score of 34.
Yeah,
We
that's
should do
totally
a hot
wrong.
we're
Yeah.
gonna have to do a hot take show where I'm just gonna sit here and go, what were you thinking?
That'd be great,
Like what
actually.
like why
You're full of
what were you
crap.
thinking?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
but I mean totally, like this and why is the score so high when you look and it's all very average? It's because it has all of the
It's because it's
things.
got every
And
category.
I don't think anything else on your hot take spreadsheet from the past ever had all of the things.
Probably not. Maybe Brisbane. I don't know. I'd have to go look. But the things that tend to have more stuff because of the, again, like I said at the top of this video, this is not a scientific method here. This is not well balanced or anything. It's a structure to have a conversation. But the things that tend to have everything tend to score well, and that's why I say, guys, it's really difficult to compare like the total score here versus another total score. It might let inspire you to go look at a video or something like that, but really what you want to do is make your own judgment based on your own understanding of how these things feel when you're playing similar ships. But yeah, that's crazy. That is the highest score we've ever got. That's insane. Well done, Kozma. Kozma's a good boat. It's just kind of a jack of all trades that's good at a lot of things. I think it's worth owning. It was expensive, and Helmet made a comment earlier, said paying cash takes away some of the fun. Agreed,
Sure.
man. Yeah. I if this boat came up for sale for 140, 150 US dollars, I would say no. I just wouldn't buy a pixel boat that costs that much
There's
money.
a lot of things in this world that paying cash takes the fun out of. I'm not sure that that's a valid argument, but
well, that's true. But yeah, so like, again, if you wind up picking one of these up somehow, if it comes out of a Santa crate that you get for completing a mission for free, count yourself lucky. I think this is a worthwhile boat to have and to play.
yeah. And again, the scale for Clyde's hot take scores, 3 is it's fine, and 4 is I like this. And I would contend that this ship is firmly between it's fine and I like this.
Yeah, I think it's in a pretty good category.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody. Scott, thanks for your ideas, your consideration, and your conversation, man. It's good to have you.
All right, no problem, buddy.
All right, bud. All right, everybody, thanks so much. Enjoy this video. Tell a friend. Watch stuff on YouTube. If you like this show, you might like the live show. Come join us, twitch.tv/Clyde Plays Live, and we will see you there. Take care. Be cool. Goodbye.